This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. We are glad to have you with us. I'm joined by John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you,
in
Roby.
Studio.
Right, 2 weeks
I brought
in a
you
row.
some early birthday presents today.
Very early.
I have been...
It's another several months before I have my fateful 68.
I couldn't hold these until then, so...
These?
These.
Oh, they're these?
Yeah, so I
And
have
thanks for an excellent job of gift wrapping as well.
Yeah. I've been cleaning out my 95-year-old great-aunt's patio home. She passed away a few weeks ago, and they were big Razorback fans.
Oh, no.
Big Razorback fans.
Not a Razorback hat.
No, I found some other cool stuff
Oh,
that I
good.
want. These are gifts for you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.
This is an old
Oh, my goodness.
Southwest Conference clock with the mascots all around them.
That is an absolute classic.
Isn't that awesome?
And you know, I'm in a Twitter feud right now with people over the 5 greatest Razorbacks of all time.
Really?
And the last tweet before I came in here, somebody said, "Why do you even bother? You don't care about the Razorbacks." I do.
You do.
I do. That's why I make so much fun of them when they're bad. It's a defense mechanism. Thank you very, very much.
Well,
should I take these home
I do.
to show Shayla and see if they fit in our decor?
Well, they do. This one
Yeah.
will look really good next to your aluminum Christmas tree at
It would.
Christmas time.
It
So,
would.
all right.
You want me to display them or put them out of the way?
You can put them up there.
Okay.
It'll be fine. So
All right.
we'll leave them up here. I also found all of these Southwest Conference
Record books?
football preview books. These are of the season from the heyday, the late 60s, early 70s.
Well, one of the heyday. No, that's the real heyday.
Published by the Arkansas Gazette.
Well, this means much to me in more than one respect. '69 was the great team, the shootout, and I've done a piece for your magazine
You
about
have.
those guys. And they invited me to their reunion. You're not taking them back, are
I'm
you?
going to put them right here
Okay.
for you so that they're kind of decorating our
Robbie,
set.
Are you really giving me this stuff?
And
These
here's
are treasures.
here's the treasure.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
This is the Sports
don't make me
Illustrated
cry. Okay.
from the week after the Texas-Arkansas shootout in '69, and it's in great shape.
That's the late James Street, Texas
Yep.
quarterback, breaking loose for the decisive touchdown run
Yep.
in the 15-14 tragedy. I got to go to that. I got to go to that reunion 40 years later when
Yeah.
these two teams got together. I'm talking to James Street, and in the background, Arkansas linebacker Mike Boschetti walks past and yells, "I was clipped," which has to be one of the greatest, because it was a recreation of what had happened.
That's right.
It was like the same angle of his running when Boschetti was blocked, I believe, from behind. So that's Bruce James right there.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Bruce James. I think
Who's not catching it?
I think Dan Kirkpatrick is the author of the story here. It is some of the best
writing?
sports writing
For sure.
I have ever read. It leaps off the page to you with
Sports
color.
Illustrated was a treasure in those days.
That is for you too.
Really?
I want you to have that. It would mean something to you.
Well, it means a lot to me, and I'd hug you if I was a hugger. Okay. Thanks.
You want to talk some politics?
I'd rather keep talking about this, but yeah, we'll talk some politics. Thank you very much. Thank
You are welcome. I wanted them to have a good home. I wanted somebody that was an avid, ardent Razorback fan and that would appreciate this era of
All right.
Razorback football, and that's you.
Well, in my own inimitable style, I'm an avid Razorback fan.
I know
Yeah.
you are.
All right.
I
Thanks.
know what's
Thanks a lot.
under the surface there.
It is, and not very far. All right.
All right, let's talk some national politics. You've written a column this week that I found particularly interesting about Joe Manchin.
Finally, you found one interesting. Okay, go ahead.
In the middle,
Joe
here's your
Manchin.
quote. Rather than demonizing him, Joe Manchin, as a Republican in poor disguise, Democrats ought to be thankful for Joe Manchin. You even suggest that he acts like how Mike Beebe might act in the U.S. Senate. Explain your thinking.
Well, first let me tell a story.
Yeah.
I'm reading that piece the next morning, and I thought, I should send BB a text. So I sent BB a text saying, I guess you spend all your time on the golf course and don't read the paper anymore, and you probably don't know how to work the iPad anyway. So I just wanted you to know that you're prominently mentioned in this column this morning. And he instantly texted back, Ginger and I are sitting here talking about it right now, and Ginger's saying, boy, wouldn't it have been great if you'd been up there in the Senate with Manchin? Y'all could have gotten some things done. And he said, by the way, Joe will love this. Here's his email. Send it to him. So I thought, well, okay, with a little tag that said, Mike Beebe said, send this to you. He responded with perfunctory politeness. Thanks,
Yeah.
thought you nailed it, or something like that. But so there was that. I thought the line in there that most people found worthy of remark and made them think is, you may be complaining that Manchin is too moderate for your taste, but he's basically the same politician Bibi was, and if you are inclined to think that Bibi would be a better senator for your purposes than Tom Cotton or John Bozeman, you ought to be obliged to be thankful for Joe Manchin. And a lot of people said, well, that's one way to look at it. The point is, this election did not provide a mandate for anything except get Trump out of office, basically. There's no policy mandate from the mixed result. 50 votes are not enough to really do much with any sort of public support. If you overplay your hand and you invite and you fire up the other side and you get beat in the midterms and you lose your majorities, you've done nothing. Particularly if you do away with the filibuster so you can pass one bill or two bills, and then you lose the Senate and give it to Republicans who then have the filibuster, thanks to you, you've teed it up for them. I think that's foolish. It's not that I'm against the progressive agenda, even though some of it maybe.
You're just saying that the math isn't there.
The math isn't there, and smart, savvy politics do not support doing more than, and that Joe Manchin is sort of the regulator. He has to tend to his moderation and his re-election chances in West Virginia and Arkansas, like Trump state, and you ought to be grateful for the fact that he is that he is keeping you from going too far. I believe that fervently. I believe as important as any policy that the Democrats might use their 50 votes plus Kamala Harris to impose, as important or more important than that is what happens after 2 years. 2 years is nothing in the great history of the country, and if you give everything back. So that was the point of the column, and I believe it strongly. And some left, some progressives take great exception.
You heard from them.
But I am not. I am as confident of my correctness on this as I have been on just about anything.
All right.
So that's what that was about.
You wrote a Sunday column on Army General Mark Milley. Basically said he said it's important to study the nearly 100 years it took America to free slaves and the nearly 100 years after that to pass a civil rights law. This speaks to critical thinking, critical race theory, although you didn't mention that in the column, white rage.
I did mention it, but I didn't elaborate. Go ahead.
Yeah. Tell me what you see playing out in conservative politics here.
Conservative politics has really changed since, say, the 80s or 90s. It's changed so much since Reagan. In those days, it was the Democrats who were accused of being against the military, and it was the Democrats who were believed to be sort of the populace, in touch with the working folks. Now, today's conservatism, as reflected in this brouhaha, is basically resentment of anything elite. It just is. The deep state or Ivy League or higher education or anything elite. Insiders in government, people with government experience. And it manifests itself in the fact that here's the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, an accomplished general out of Princeton, giving him a little talking to about how it's ridiculous to criticize the military for studying Marx, Lenin, and Mao Zedong and trying to figure out what these white people are so mad about these days, which may in fact require using the Army or the National Guard at times. And they're outraged. They're outraged because they see it as talking down to them by an out-of-touch elitist. I saw conservatives saying he's ridiculing the very people who are enlisting and serving in his army.
There was no ridicule in his statement.
Not of anybody enlisted. A little bit implied, maybe, of a couple of members of Congress in the thinking, but I didn't see that. But the point is that Laura Ingraham goes on Fox. She's one of the Fox primetime sneerers, and she says, let's basically defund the military, without any sense of irony that they're mad at the liberals wanting to defund the police. She says defund the military as long as they're going to let a general get up and say this. And the final point is, this is just, Roby, you went to Hendrix, right?
I did.
Pretty good school.
Yeah.
Took some good classes, had some good professors.
Well, yeah.
Did you ever hear anything you thought dubious or that you disagreed with?
No, you were obviously challenged to think for yourself.
That's what I mean. You were instructed in matters of thinking that were uncomfortable to you or caused you to reconsider or ponder.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just spoon feed this guy what we want him to hear.
Correct.
That's what education has always been until lately. It was remarkable that the general said that, but more remarkable that this fervent reaction by white conservative Republicans. I think my tweet was, why are white people in such rage over being called, over a reference to white rage? They show white rage in the way they react to white rage being studied. So I find it very unfortunate.
Skip Rutherford, former dean,
Not,
almost.
No white rage there.
No.
This is a clean break.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Will soon be the former dean of the Clinton School of Public Service. What do you think? Put maybe Skip's career in context in the Clinton legacy and what he's done for the School of Public Service, the library itself. I mean, it's remarkable what it has done in terms of its economic engine for the state,
right.
but also here in Central Arkansas, just the breadth of speakers that have come through and the students that it's put out.
Well, yeah, that's the obvious thing. But just to back up, this guy's adult life is just a story of civic and political engagement unparalleled by anyone in the state during that time. I started writing my column in 1987. He had been on prior staff and I think had just joined his friend Mac McClarty as vice president or assistant for government relations, political relations, whatever relations. And Skip figured out quite quickly that back in its infancy, my column was less thoughtful than it is now. It was more gossipy. It was inside politics gossip. Okay. And that was right up Skip's alley. I mean, he is a pure, consummate
He helped found the Political Animals Club.
That's what I'm getting ready to say. Then he found it. He didn't help found. He founded the Political Animals Club. And then he decides that Little Rock schools need some help and need some strong community backing, and he runs for the school board and gets it basically by acclamation from his district, is instrumental in the state funding, extra funding to Little Rock, which only ran out a few years ago. Then here comes his friend Clinton, who makes him chairman of the state Democratic Party when there's financial trouble there because there'd been some management issues. Then here Clinton makes the run for president. Here is a consummate Arkansas, David Pryor trained, Clinton trained political animal who just lives and breathes it. And suddenly he's got this great gift. Bill Clinton and his state. I remember Skip coming out of the Clinton headquarters downtown and saying he's been in there chatting with David Wilhelm, the campaign manager, or Paul Begala. He was just in his element. And then he did not go to Washington, which I think would have been a mistake. It was a mistake for just about anybody who went to Washington. He stayed here. And over the years began to, through public service work, began to be just Mr. Community around here. And then he gets made dean after David Pryor, his first mentor, of the Clinton School, during which time the Clinton School, in addition to bringing all these bright kids to Little Rock, for non-traditional education, they do project-oriented things, that helped in the community. Beyond that, yeah, the speaker series. I'm getting to that. That's what you asked about.
Well, there's a lot of things to talk about. This is multifaceted. So.
But the speakers he's brought to, he, not alone, but under his leadership and with his influence that the Clinton School has brought to this community, from Ken Starr on one hand to this Dawson guy, the famous evolution atheist, who drew a record crowd until he brought Ruth Bader Ginsburg here and filled up the arena for a Supreme Court justice, and told me later that one of the highlights of his life, and there's been many, is having dinner early before the event at the Capitol Hotel with former President Clinton and Justice Ginsburg. Heck of a deal, huh? So what a life.
Yeah.
And the issue is he really retiring?
No.
You wouldn't think so.
I've accused him of doing a lot of things. I suggested to him that he should run for governor of Arkansas, and he quickly shut that down. So.
Well, he's always been pretty smart, so I wouldn't advise him to do that. But yeah, it's quite a life, and I would like to say my colleague Bill, Democrat Gazette, Bill Bowden. Thank you, good friend. Did you read his piece?
I did.
What a thorough job of telling a story that I just tried to retell just now with a little bit of.
You gave it the Cliff's Notes version.
Anyway, thanks for bringing him up, and it's quite a story.
All right.
All right,
Good
man.
to see you.
And thanks for I'll treasure these things. I'm going home right now, and I'm not going to do any more work today. I'm just going to read all this
You
material.
need to find batteries for the clock too.
The clock
but
is
the first thing that you need to do out of all this is read that article again. It is fantastic writing.
I'm going to have to.
You'll write a column about that.
I will.
Yeah.
I may, but it's how this is going to fit my boss's decorating technique at home is going to be an issue. Maybe I can have my own little space. I've got my own office. And
that
it's
goes in
tacky
your man cave.
Right. All right.
John Brummett with
Thank
the
you.
Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Thanks. That's all for today's program. Thanks for watching.